joining us. When it comes to online racist abuse, football is once again in the spotlight. A series of incidents last week resulted in a wave of condemnation from those within the game and further afield. As a result, social media giants are facing calls to police their platforms more effectively, with companies even being urged to use artificial intelligence to spot racist messages as they're being written. Another idea gaining support is ending anonymity on social media so the racists can be tracked down. So, how would regulation work, and why is it proving so difficult to tackle this issue? Hal Hodson is technology correspondent for the Economist magazine. Also on the line is the social media and digital marketing expert, Finn Wycherley. Good morning, Hal, and good morning, Finn.
Good morning.
First of all, Hal, is regulation feasible?
I think regulation is feasible, but, be in no doubt that it's very, very hard to do this. If it were easy, we the world would have solved these problems, because they have been rumbling on for a long time.
Finn, what do you think?
Regulation has to come in at some point. And in fact, the social media companies themselves are calling for it, because obviously when Facebook and Twitter and all these guys were setting up in their garages, they didn't realize that eventually they were going to have to be the mediators for democracy. So even though they've got half the world's population on their platforms, they're struggling to try and actually mediate some of the issues that are going on.
Do you think then we're being a little bit hard on them?
Well, it's an awful big demographic they're having to deal with, and you can have people that are just being curmudgeonly, like parish council committee people, and then you have people who are doing incredibly amazing stuff, but it could be very offensive for a different community. So the social media companies themselves are asking for the countries and the international community to actually set up institutions that can help them actually regulate, rather than for them to be policing free speech in the world.
How widespread is the type of abuse being levelled at footballers on social media? We saw Marcus Rashford having been targeted this week and speaking out about it.
I think the kinds of things that were being said to Marcus and happening to Marcus last week are happening all over the internet all the time. We just tend not to hear about them because most of the people who are on the receiving end of that kind of stuff aren't Marcus Rashford. They're not famous, and they don't have channels to the media where they can, rightly draw attention to this kind of thing. So it really is everywhere. And I think the difficulty with it is I don't think any liberal society wants big, powerful companies making these decisions on their own. And so in a way, we're all tied down to the speed at which our own governments can go on this stuff. And they're going slowly, and that is a problem.
So who is it up to? Is it up to governments to make laws so the courts decide?
I think it is to some extent up to governments to make laws for the courts to decide. I also think that, there's a way of thinking about this that makes an analogy with the real world, right? And if someone was being a horrible racist bully in a school or in a club in the physical world, that school or club would have the power to kind of, ban them, say, we don't want you here, right? And so I think in that sense, the social media platforms retain the power to kick whoever they want off the platform. The problem is that because they're so big and because there aren't that many other choices, if you get kicked off Twitter, there's not that many other things like Twitter with as much reach as Twitter, that their freedom to, serve whoever they want or not serve whoever they want becomes a real problem.
Finn, what do the companies need to do? Do they need to do more to stop racism and abuse online, or should the onus be, again, as we were saying, the courts and governments?
So they definitely can be making sure they're tightening up on the signing up process. So when YouTube, for example, decided to make sure that when anybody was signing up for an account, they had to kind of verify who they were, although it was easy to kind of work a way around it if you knew your way around technology, it did eventually stop the incredible onslaught that people were experiencing whenever they were putting up videos, because you would have incredible levels of trolling happening, so where people were going out of their way to find people who'd just experienced the death of a child and actually going out with incredible hate speech on a consistent basis just because they got the kicks from it or whatever. But so as soon as YouTube introduced those kinds of stricter sign-up processes, then anonymity was not so easy to obtain, and therefore the level of trolling on YouTube actually decreased. So definitely it's something that the social media platforms could be introducing.
It seems crazy to me that when you sign up for a Twitter account, for instance, or a certain social media account, all you need to do is give your name. But if you sign up, for like a supermarket delivery, you've got to give your date of birth, your address, everything, much more in the way of detail.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we need to see a much more toughening of those kinds of processes, because at the end of the day, if people are going to be really mean and horrible and abusive and offensive, they've got the cloak of anonymity to hide them as well. So whereas if people actually know and they can be traced, and when the abuse actually happens on any of their platforms, there are tools that people can use to report or block these people, and then they can apply to the police also, because the laws of the land apply as much to the digital platforms as they do to the physical world.
Hal, it seems to me almost impossible for the social media companies with billions of messages being sent every day to police everything.
It is impossible. And even you mentioned AI at the top, and even using, the latest cutting edge machine learning, artificial intelligence technology, it's still impossible because human language is a very nuanced thing. If you write a piece of software that says you cannot use this word or that word in this order or that order, then people will just find a way around it. They'll find another way of making horrible remarks and piling in and saying horrible things to people. So I don't think that software filtering is really the answer. And in some ways this is a collision of expectations. For the most part in the West, we expect our public spheres to be a place where you can speak freely and kind of say whatever you want, and marketplace of ideas. And one of the things we expect there is anonymity. I expect to be able to go to Speaker's Corner and stand up on a soapbox and say my piece without having to register with anyone or say who I am, or I shouldn't have to do that in the real world. The difficulty is that online is so much bigger, and my speech can move so much faster and have so much more of an impact. And if there are 20,000 horrible people out there who want to troll a woman who's mother has just died or something on YouTube, then they can do that, and it's free for them to do that. They can do it immediately, and so it does require rethinking the norms that we expect in public spaces for speech.
There is talk in the US from the Democrats that they want to break up Facebook. What would that achieve?
Well, it depends how they do it. There's one school of thought that says you break the actual Facebook social network, or the Blue app, the one with news feeds and friends and photos, that you break that up into many different pieces. I'm not sure what exactly that would achieve. It would mean that there was competition between them, but the thing is that the whole point of the Blue app is that it's where all your friends are. And if you break it up, then it's not really Facebook anymore. Facebook is defined by the existence of one network of all friends. And in many ways, it is just a successful natural monopoly. So breaking it up is very hard.
That's interesting stuff. Hal Hodson, technology correspondent for The Economist magazine and digital marketing expert. Finn Wycherley, thank you both very much.